welcome to Fashion Education in the Metaverse, a live webinar hosted by the Digital Fashion Group Academy and Parsons N Ventures. I'm Livia Pinem, Digital Professor for Research at the Digital Fashion Group Academy, talking from Porto, Portugal. Good morning to those who are participating with us from the American continent as well. Good morning. Good afternoon from Europe and good evening, Singapore. This is the third of a series of webinars about the interactions of fashion in the metaverse. You can watch the first ones on our website, the digitalfashionGroup.academy. Today, we are happy to have here 5 key players to discuss the future of fashion education. From Singapore, Shannon Singh, lecturer at School of Fashion at La Salle College of Arts. Shannon was also one of our students at the Digital Fashion 101, a pioneer at the first cohort. Good evening, Shannon. It's so good to have you here.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to be part of this webinar.
Thank you. From London, we have Professor Jules Dagonet, Head of School Fashion and Textiles at the UCA, University for Creative Arts. Hello, Jules. How are you?
Hi, hello, Livia. Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with a fantastic panelist today.
Thank you so much. And from the New School in New York, we have Maya Georgieva, Director of Education Futures at Reality Center. Good morning, Maya. Thank you so much for joining us that early in the morning.
Good morning from New York City. Yes, excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
That's great. And also with us, we have Leslie Houghton. He's one of the founders of the Digital Fashion Group, talking from Brussels.
Good afternoon. Good to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Livia.
And also the other co-founder of the Digital Fashion Group, Sean Childs, talking also from Portugal. Good afternoon. Hello. And good to have you both here.
Thank you, Livia, and hello, and it's great to be joining this academic discussion.
Thank you. So also with us on the audience, we have the team from Parsons N Ventures. Hello to you all. Just for you to notice, at the end of the session, we have a Q&A, 5-minute Q&A session. So you can send your questions here on the Q&A tool on Zoom. So let's start the conversation. To educate new generations and help them to foresee their professional careers, is always a challenge. But especially now that we have these disruptive technologies changing our industry in such a fast pace. We are training people today to play roles we don't even know yet. How to train people for a future workplace in the metaverse, and how to build the curriculum for the future of fashion. So looking forward to hear from all of you. I will start a question to Professor Jules. So what are fashion students' expectations in terms of learning digital technologies? UCA now has its first digital fashion MA students. The first class started in September. Have you seen a change in how contemporary fashion designers entering postgraduate studies, how they see the future, and how are we as professors, as academics, how we are answering to this demand?
Thank you, Livia, for this very interesting question. And I think there are a couple of points there. The first one is student expectations. The second one is about postgraduate studies. And the third one is about answering the new demand. So just tackling the first one in terms of student expectation, in terms of digital fashion, I would say that students can be inspired and are happy to embrace digital fashion, but they are not driving it. Because when you are 18 or 17, you don't know very much yet about the fashion industry, and you have some ideas, some thoughts, but you expect to be in some way driven by academia and what the program is going to offer. And so I think it's very much the responsibility of education institution to lead and to innovate in digital fashion, and then get the students on board with it. And I can certainly see that we've seen that among our students at UCA. We give them the tools, something like Close 3D will tell them about digital fashion, and then they kind of run with it. And then when we ask them later, what made you such early adopters of this new technology, a few things come up. They mention sustainability. Just like the fashion industry wants to become more sustainable, I think we also have a role to play as educators to inspire the new generation to also have more sustainable practices. And it's something that's top of mind for them anyway. The second thing interesting is affordability, because when you do all this on digital prototyping, you don't need to buy all the fabrics. You can just do it online, and in a way it's more affordable, especially when the software itself is provided by the institution. The third point actually that is very attractive for them is prototyping. You can prototype endlessly with a digital software without it costing you very much. And only once you're happy with the prototype, the digital prototype, then you move to the physical prototype. And the student told her that now she understands that whatever she makes with Close 3D, she can make in the real world. So that's another incentive for students. And I think the fourth one is visibility. Because you can take pictures of your garment, of your samples, but actually when it's digital, you can just put it online right away, get some feedback from the audience, see what they think, and that is hugely attractive for them. So in summary, education institutions need to drive change, and then it is being embraced by students. The second point that you asked me about is in terms of postgraduate studies. I think it's been very interesting for us at UCA. I said the MA Digital Fashion has been almost for us like a Trojan horse to introduce digital fashion at UCA, and then it's kind of cross-pollinizing other courses. So at the same time as we launched the MA Digital Fashion, we signed an agreement with Farfetch for our students to work on a really exciting project for them. I can't say much more than that because it's NDA protected. But we brought on board not only the MA Digital Fashion student, and also, as it happened, the MA Textile student and the MA Creative Direction. And suddenly everyone had to know about Close 3D, because otherwise they couldn't complete the project. And so that's been one of the unexpected benefits, if you like, of having a program that is specifically MA Digital Fashion, but actually through the industry project that we bring on and the collaboration that it generates, other courses are also embracing digital fashion. So that's been very exciting. Then in terms to your third point, in terms of how do we meet this new demand, I think it's really about change management and change management at the level of the institution. So the way that we've been doing that at UCA is by identifying some champions, some early adopters, some people for one reason or another could get on the on the digital fashion train earlier and then drive adoption across the institution. Another thing which is important as a head of School of Fashion and Textile, and I keep telling everyone, we want to be a global leader in digital fashion education. And I remember watching a presentation on change management, saying in many organizations, 80% of people don't know what the strategy is. So I think it's very important, for the leadership, for the management, to keep repeating again and again, we want to be a global leader in digital fashion. Everyone needs to embrace digital fashion, whether it's at the postgraduate or undergraduate level. Now, of course, we can't just talk the talk, we have to walk the walk. And walking the walk, as far as we are concerned, is about upskilling staff members. Because not every staff member will know about Close 3D, about Substance, That 3D, Blender, all the new software that are being introduced to bring digital fashion to life. And so it is our responsibility as education institution to upskill all our staff members. And that's certainly an important priority for us this year at UCA. Finally, it's also a war for talents. I don't like the word war, but certainly there is an objective to attract new talents who can teach, who can research in digital fashion and drive it forward in terms of innovation. And finally, bringing industry partners on board is also a great way to keep the momentum going and to keep people exciting. It's also hugely challenging. I know, every year we run the NSS and the question is, have you felt challenged by your course? And I know that the MA Digital Fashion students, who are an exceptional cohort, are feeling also extremely challenging, but they are certainly rising to the challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. It's good to know they are being challenged. And talking about walking the walk, Maya, you were the lead author of the 2021 State of XR and Immersive Learning report, in which you wrote about immersive learning and students as creators. What are these immersive learning experiences, and as fashion educators, how can we incorporate these into our curriculums?
Thank you, Olivia. Yes, I want to connect to a couple of teams that I wrote about the State of XR and Immersive Learning report that was released earlier this year. And particularly, the report looks at key trends in terms of challenges and opportunities that exist with immersive learning and immersive technologies today. And I think three key areas that are relevant to our conversation today is the idea of immersive storytelling. And that's a key ingredient of the metaverse, that we will be actually in these worlds, in these spaces, meeting people and creating stories. And I think the second one is the idea of, just as Jules just mentioned, the idea that the future of work is going to look very differently the way we probably even fathom it today. Careers that in job descriptions don't exist for what's to come, because we're in this moment in time, a fascinating place, Terra Nova, for I think for all humanity and any fields of study, and I think into process. And then the third one, which is the most relevant to this conversation today, as you mentioned, and I think to me, as being at the New School and working with the students from Parsons School of Design, is students as creators. And I think this is a component where, well, as we are stepping into these new worlds, the most important part is for us to actually encourage students to experiment in these spaces. And I see this very much as where we find ourselves with early movies, with the Lumiere brothers and Jean Millet, and then trying different things and rapid prototyping. And I think that is one of the ways to encourage students to see themselves at the moment in time we find ourselves today. Because today, what we're doing is actually asking students to step into the studio of the metaverse. Students still need to learn the tools. They will need to learn, probably borrow from other fields like games and cinema. But at the same time, they're very much the next generation that will shape that metaverse. And I think I find that as very important part as what I do with our students. I think to Jules' point, it's important for us as educators to create a space for that, and to create both in terms of on our physical campuses as labs, as where students can come and experiment with these new technologies and really step into these experiences, as well as in the metaverse. At the moment today, I think we're in an interesting time where our students use Quo 3D, they use Adobe, they use Cinema 4D or other Blender, and this is all happening on the desktop. It's actually, we're creating 3D on 2D screens and desktop. But I'm very excited about, I think, tools like Google Stilt Brush, as well as Gravity Sketch, where our students can actually be in these virtual spaces and creating for them. And why is this important is because it just gives them the opportunity to see that work with a fresh perspective. And it is just as painting on a 2D is very different than when you go in 3D. You very much, it feels like a sculptural painting. And when we bring fashion from, I think, 2D platforms into, I think, kind of virtual spaces and create within them, I think these new possibilities will exist, which I think our students are about to actually open the doors to them, because things that are possible in the physical world has limitations, and I think there's just a new way to look into materials, the new way to look into design, the new way, even if you think about in digital spaces like the metaverse, there is no gravity. They are definitely places where this true experimentation can take place. And it's really encouraging that rapid prototyping and bringing our students to it. I think the other component I want to kind of think of as we think about, well, how when we think about our programs and we think about how do we introduce students to, kind of be able to think about this new space. And some of them come with experience in games, and some of them don't. Some of them, there's a diverse set of backgrounds. I think in the students coming to fashion programs, and they bring great opportunities to work with that. But I think for us as educators, I think there are three ingredients that I find important, and that again is the idea of immersive storytelling. These worlds will be very much about stories. They will be meta there'll be the narrative about the world as well as the meta narratives of us participating in this world. And often I think what's coming to us is a much more social space. And so understanding sort of that component of immersive stories, of discovering rather than being told a story, and how that plays to our identity. Why do we want to be participants in the story? How do we want to actually display our identity at that time? I find my students playing in my course of immersive storytelling, playing with multiple identities and playing a lot with this kind of body transfer. It might not, when they, in the future, we might be kind of not only thinking about the human body, but various, I think, layers of gender and identity and color playing into that. And the second, I think, ingredients I often think is that it's asking our students to think also as architects and designers of these virtual spaces and worlds, and understanding how they work, and understanding, building in these worlds, and what attracts people, what brings people there, and why we're driven to it. Which also speaks to my third, I think, ingredient that I often encourage our students to think is being entrepreneurial, just as the early innovators. And I think that is not always something that we teach, particularly in art and design programs, but it's a key. I think it's key ingredients of our students adopting this exploration mindset of thinking about things that they might not exist. They're at that moment in time when they are presented with opportunities, and thinking through how they may create and in these virtual worlds and present and express themselves, and just building a whole new layer of social and emotional and I think fashion experiences. So I think that is a sort of I think it's almost every time when I speak about immersive learning, I find myself, it opens more questions than answers. But I think this is, I think the space we inhabit today.
That's great. Thank you, Maya. And as educators, how can we participate? Leslie, how to train the trainers in this scenario?
Yeah, Olivia, that's that's a really good question. And yeah, how to rethink the curriculum for the future, and what kind of training do the trainers need to do in a way? Well, I think it's important to realize that as far as changing fashion education for the future, there's really no time left to start rearranging the deck chairs. To kind of put it into context, the fashion industry is swiftly moving towards digital solutions for design and data as new tools for business growth, not to mention the borderless landscape of NFTs and the Metaverse. But fashion education generally lacks provision in these areas. So, like, who's teaching fashion design students as an integral part of their learning how to use AI, for example, as a tool to validate their designing and embrace data into their creative universe, even although AI is everywhere through the value chain? We're on the whole graduating students trained for an old-fashioned system, an old business model. Of course, there's some excellent examples of good practice with digital fashion, but on the whole, we're still educating in the same formula that I was taught 30 odd years ago. I've just got the poll come up, get rid of that poll. And in the UK alone, there are nearly 5,000 fashion design graduates each year. Maybe Jules will be able to have a better number on this than me, but are these graduates really ready for the rapid digitalization of the industry? A change in fashion education is urgently needed to reimagine, re-identify a new kind of fashion designer, a new mindset, and a new body of knowledge and skills required to interact with sophisticated technologies now involved. Digitalization has to be embraced from point zero in the fashion curriculum. Now, our experiences at the Digital Fashion Group, talking and working with orthodox fashion education, is that there is a realization and a wish to shift towards and develop a knowledge of digital fashion. There's a clear desire from the industry and students, but where to start? change is really difficult. How to pivot towards a curriculum that embraces digital, what to let go of in an old one and give space to the new, how to ensure the quality, the student numbers, of course, new methods, new skills, new collaboration, new curriculum with a team who perhaps have little or no digital skills and lack a network in this area. In our research for our Digital Fashion 101 course, it was clear to us that with digitalization and digital fashion, it's important to first understand the mindset and the strategies. The skills come after. That's why we developed Digital Fashion 101 the way we did, as a foundation course, establishing the mindset and our new course, which we're going to launch in the spring 2022, we're then talking about the skills to support the mindset. Now, we've had a number of fashion lecturers taking 101, including Shannon, and who are hopefully now sharing the mindset with their colleagues and their students. And we have had many fashion graduates who have had little or no digital education. So as a training, that course, Digital Fashion 101, is there for all to join. But what we also realized was that, there was our friends in fashion education also need, in many cases, a more bespoke approach. And so we're working with a number of universities, training and advising to support them through their digital transformation. And this starts with a Train the Trainers course, where we facilitate the team to create a digital manifesto of intention, a curriculum framework, and measurable objectives. And it's not enough now just to shove some CLO into the curriculum. We're really looking at an entirely new mind and skill set. And this starts with training the trainer. In the Digital Fashion Group, we see the creative, as Maya said, in a way, they see the creative as the center of the data dialogue in the future. The center of like a short supply chain, close to the consumer, close to the manufacturer, working with an end-to-end suite of digital solutions where AI, AR, VR are tools to validate their creativity and to be embraced throughout the creative and the product development process, be it for a digital only, creating NFT assets for the metaverse, or a phygital designer working between digital and physical. And because everything starts with education, we need to train the fashion educators to be able to teach designers to be digital entrepreneurs with the right digital mindset. Now, perhaps this won't answer the needs for all students who want to study fashion, but should we really keep educating so many fashion designers with an old business model when employability is really a key performance metric for fashion education these days? Thank you.
Food for thought. So talking about one of our students who is an educator and coming from a different background, cultural background perspective. Shannon, we know that one of the advantages of digital learning is being able to be global, to bring together students from all over the globe in a virtual room, or have the lecturers themselves in every part of the globe contributing. How do you believe this is impacting the experience, the learning experience?
I would like to begin the answer for this question from the perspective of what's happening in our world today first. So first and foremost, the way we go about lives, our society, and people, in terms of how we behave and how the fashion industry will be shaped further, will no longer be the same as before the pandemic. Just like how everything has changed after each major event, like the Spanish flu outbreak or even the Second World War. So every change presents us with opportunities to innovate, opportunities to transform. So as of now, we are already seeing a fast acceleration of digital transformation brought about by the pandemic. So Industry 4.0 has unlimited potential to reshape business, work, our society, and of course, the way our students learned. I would like to say that the same unlimited potential is also presented for the future of fashion education. In this new era of learning, technology plays a fundamental role in the process of teaching and learning. There's so many digital education tools that have been created with the purpose of giving autonomy to students. With that, I see with virtual classroom, the barrier between lecturers and students have been more open and accessible now. This encourages collaborations and promotes communication and the possibilities of transcending geographical boundaries and time zones, which were or not possible in the past. So, sorry, yeah. So speaking of geographical location, Singapore is one of the most wired countries and technologically advanced ICT markets in the world. We now have 5G network covering over 2/3 of Singapore by one of the leading network providers in Singapore. People who live in Singapore are highly connected, and users of technology are voracious consumers of data. So take LaSalle, the college that I'm in, for example, particularly in the School of Fashion where I teach in. We are always constantly innovating the ways we teach. We are always rethinking our teaching and learning approach and culture, particularly during these unprecedented times where we need to respond, adapt innovatively to the volatile state of the global pandemic. We have always been in the forefront as an early adopter of advanced and innovative learning approaches for our programs. So this being the adoption of many blended learning strategies and the use of digital platforms such as Collaborate Ultra, Slack, Jamboard, Miro, Blackboard, Palette, amongst others. I'm sure all of you are familiar with all these digital platforms. So we bring together organizations, industry partners, students, lecturers, and institutions from different parts of the globe in the virtual room, contributing and learning from each other through creative and cross-disciplinary collaborations with institutions, industry partners, and organizations from across the globe to transform learning experience. It's really digital learning at its best. And all of this, I feel, impact the experience of learning positively. We did a survey over the summer break this year, and the findings showed that our students love the blended form of education using both remote and in-person classes. The students love the digital classroom. And when we talk about students, it's not just Singaporeans, but international students from the region as well, like Malaysia, India, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea, China, where all our students are from. So this gives us a very nice understanding of the profile of the kind of learners we have from the region. And this was an insightful discovery the pandemic has presented us with. And I would like to think that this is because digital learning is a virtual classroom that caters to different learners' needs and learning pace and presents more opportunities to create more stimulating content, not just by the program team, but from creative professionals, organizations, and institutions across the globe. So it's not just from the academic perspective of how we create content and curriculum, but an involvement of everybody and all parts, like a chain of network. To add on, I was very privileged, to be part of the first run, the pioneer batch of the Digital Fashion 101 course developed by the Digital Fashion Group in June this year. So over a span of 6 weeks, I find myself questioning more and more about the current fashion system, current business model. I have so many what ifs, what not, etc. My mind was in a state of constant explosion of questions and ideas with the content put out each week. I find myself researching more, looking up more articles, papers, videos, podcasts, to find out more. I am still learning even at this point of my life, and I don't intend to stop. And I think it's important for educators, to keep on, having that hunger to upgrade, to learn, so that we can be able to bring about that change that we always want to see, and to further shape the future of fashion education. And I must say, I really like the format of the Digital Fashion 101 course. It was really digital fashion at its best, and it's really about this mindset that Leslie has mentioned earlier on, that we need to change, when it comes to learning, the mindset in students, that it's not about that prescribed learning anymore. It's about presenting to them the content, and then getting them to stimulate their own mind, giving them the full autonomy to learn and to push their fullest potential from there. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shannon. And just remember, if you want to contribute to the Q&A, you can send us our questions anytime, and in a few minutes we will respond it. So to close this round of questions to Sean, fashion designers, they must have an international outlook, exploring cultures, fitting the zeitgeist, referencing inspiration for any source. This is the foundation of the creative physique and design education that is disconnected from the limits of industry and employment. Many of the current discussions about the metaverse are focused on e-commerce. Does the metaverse have the potential to encourage engagement with the foundations of design education and future skills development?
Thank you, Livia. Yes, of course, I think, and thanks everybody for this fantastic contribution. And what we see here is collaboration in thought and collaboration in development, which is what it's all about. And the metaverse itself, as we, the chatter about metaverse over the last 6 months or whatever, collaboration is a key point here, and collaboration between people, society, between designers, between different skills and approaches, and everything is one of the key things about it in the future, I think. And referenced in the video at the beginning with Arthur C. Clarke in 1964, talking about the future and the things like the digital replicator, for example, is the equivalent of the digital twin that can take into the metaverse. So all sorts of things are possible. It's really fascinating. But yes, and of course the question, the interesting point about the metaverse at the moment is everything seems to be about commerce and about people buying real estate within the metaverse and bringing your brand in and selling your product. And this is the potential, and that's the potential. And I particularly wanted to look at that point to say there is an element of education in design. I guess it depends on the institution where you study, where you studied, in my own experience, whether your focus is on the job that you do and the job you're going to go to do, or the creation that you want to make. And that's where I come from. I come from the point of view that you may want to be a designer or a creator in fashion. It may have nothing to do with commerce at all. It's just about you expressing what you want to develop. And hence, that's why I kind of try to disconnect it from the industry and commerce in this sense. A lot of this, the focus on employment, for example, in academia, comes from the change of institutions over the last 20 to 30 years, where they moved from having an artistic and research approach, perhaps for design and creation, to actually government saying, well, if we're going to fund some of your courses, it's about how people get employed at the end of the day and the job that they're going to do. Education itself is not about that. Training is about that. That's two separate sides for me. Education is a personal development. It's about what you want to see, what you want to be, who you want to be, what you want to do, etc., and create within, for a designer, within your psyche, with what you feel about everything. And then we link to the zeitgeist with design and social interaction and all these elements that go to create the beauty of fashion as art mixed with craft, and of course the skill of creating it. So you learn skills, and digital technology at the end of the day, at the moment, is a skill that you learn, and you can learn that very quickly, to be honest, like you can learn how to cut a pattern very quickly. What you need to learn is how this relates to the person and how this relates to society, and how the line that you cut in your bias cut piece of cloth for your skirt, your dress, your jacket, whatever it is you're going to make, is a relationship between creativity and your vision, and maybe what somebody else takes from you. So this is why I like to talk about this area as opposed to the skills that we need to learn, et cetera, because you would then apply all of the skills that you learn to actually bringing this out and creating something and creating fashion. The metaverse itself brings this opportunity for us to look at things in a really, really different way creatively. And I'm very, very interested in two sides of it, how we can immerse ourselves in digital research, for example, because the opportunity in a metaverse, which is showing you, for example, I've got to launch my own poll here while I talk. There you go. I'm the poll master. Sorry about bringing it up in front of all of your conversations. Was that, you know, the opportunity of being in a world where you can bring up a video and look at another video and bring up an exhibition that's in Zagreb or an exhibition that's in Tokyo at the same time, and engaging yourself in all of this research and compiling your own digital research book of everything that's influencing you at this time that's going on, of watching news clips, bringing all that in, is fascinating. How you're going to do this in an immersive environment, fascinating. And then how you translate this to the skill of using, for example, I won't mention the right software, but using Tilt Brush, for example, to create the lines of your dress that you want to do on an avatar within a three-dimensional environment for which you're using, or virtual reality goggles, for example. Or you're then going to be able to pull out fabric that you've put on a body to create a new shape, as you would when you're draping on the stand when you're in a school, in a physical school. This is something that I find really fascinating, and I believe that's part of the real future of it, is how we can engage on that level. Added to this is the fact that within the metaverse, when you are designing purely digitally, physics is gone in a way to do with fabrics, in that you can do anything you like. You can make a liquid dress, you can make a concrete suit, whatever you want to do, you can do it, and it can be there. So that's really interesting, I think. But again, it's about, for me, this disconnection from industry, from commerce, and more about what you are and who you are and what you're going to be in the metaverse. And already we've had mention of the fact that people have multiple identities. Yes, they do. And they enter these digital worlds with multiple identities. You could be a designer in the digital world with 3 or 4 different hats, just like a designer today may do 2 or 3 different brands, and present completely different outlooks and different ideas for other people to engage with, not necessarily to buy, but to engage with. This is a really interesting area for me. I'm not a researcher, but if I was going to research, this is something I'd really like to look at. I also, there's one other issue that I can't get over yet, and this is the thing with technology today that I find challenging. In order, what I understand so far, in order to really engage immersively in the metaverse and in the areas we're talking about, and development of digital fashion, then we would need to be wearing a headset at the end of the day of some kind. I don't think we're yet at the point where we can stand in a holographic room and do it all there, but we need to have some kind of engagement, and it has to be that way. This is perhaps where it stops a lot of people actually really getting into it, because they don't want to be wearing a headset all day and engaging that way. And I'm certainly not going to sit at my desk all day wearing a headset, or even a pair of augmented reality glasses, for example. So the interface is really important. And I think that's an interesting development as we move forward, is how the interface for this development can engage with us and the digital world in order to create what we want to create. So I feel this is a really inspirational time in terms of digital development, and therefore in terms of creative development and fashion development. I also feel we have to be careful of losing the contextual element of the real and the fabric and what you touch. and how you engage with and understand fabric for real fashion being wearable fashion. And that's something I think important for the future. So we have to work in the metaverse, we have to work with the metaverse. The digital and technology people involved in the metaverse have to be engaged with design and creativity from the point of view of the creator and not the technologist, to understand how people create and how we can bring our ideas to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And ending, like, actually this leads to one of the questions that I want to do for all of you, the 5 of you. Looking to the future, looking into the future, what do you see for education? Which new challenges and opportunities will be seen? Because we're talking about challenges that we are already facing and solving. For what I can hear here, we are very aware of these challenges and turning them in the best way. But what about the future? Which new challenge do you see is coming for us, and especially the opportunities?
Can I start? Well, I think to link 2 things here, to link what Shannon was saying about how important it is to work with a digital mindset across different ways of working with digital, very important. But also the flagging up the news in the last few days about Facebook, the reality labs, the whole metaverse thing, but the amount of investment they're making into an education program, which they're working with Coursera on as one of their partners. So the $150 million thereabouts. I think that was just out the top of my head. I think that was the figure. And they're really working on developing more education, more training for people in augmented and virtual reality tools. Now, I think that's super, super important. Whatever you think about Facebook, it's super, super important that there's people or organizations taking some kind of lead in helping people understand how to use these tools more to develop their professional practice as educators. So of course, in the Digital Fashion Group, we're talking very much about the designer's position from an education perspective, how a designer needs to be developed, how a designer needs to grow. But of course, all these tools for educators have to be used and have to be developed for the educators first, before they can help educate the students with them. So, so I think that any move towards showing a path, showing the way that we can work towards working in something like the metaverse, and how could the metaverse not just be a shopping mall, but how could it also be a location for education, a location for coming together to share new ideas in how you're approaching an education in the digital sphere. Yeah.
Precisely. Go, Maya, please.
I think it's a fascinating conversation. And I think what fashion brings to something like a place like the Metaverse is ultimately humanizing it. And being, the future is immersive, but the future is also human. And I think that's a very important part. And I think as creatives of actually bringing, creating these new experiences within the Metaverse, as others are walking in and craving a much more like social and connected experience. And fashion has a great way to connect people in ways as you present your identity. I do think that both learning and work and I think leisure in the future will take shape of a story. Will take shape of a play or a game, and it will absolutely involve multiple players and multiple actors, and it will be very much driven, and the interplay will happen on platforms but I think it's ultimately about experience. And I think that, there's this conversation, I think, which Leslie and Sean talked about, the idea about the metaverse, and the conversation that is both exciting to see and at the same time, has become a bit of a buzzword. But I think when we think about this digital transformation that all parts of, I think, our human experience is undergoing, it's really, we're going into that kind of like age of experiences. And I think the only way I think we get to bring the insights into this and bring creatives is through making. And that's why I think I see fashion and, what we do in our, educational institutions, what I work with, Parsons School of Design and through my lab and the center at the New School is bringing these students, bringing this world to them and ushering them into this world and understanding that this is a new ecosystem and this will present new ways of doing things and new ways of creating and possibly new business model that is an opportunity. And I think it's really that's how we have the opportunity as creatives to shape this. And it's critical to include this part in, I think, in any education kind of curriculum today. But incredibly so, I think there's this new opportunity for fashion in virtual worlds. This has been missing. We're just coming to point at where we have actually the opportunity to embody these avatars, to walk into these digital platforms, and it's only going to, move forward with a greater speed. I'm excited every time I see our students kind of basically understand that they have a role to play, and they do, and they will shape that future. And it's our kind of, I think, our challenge is to bring creative supportive space, bring our own programs and ourselves into, I think, basically collaboratively creating the space for the future of fashion education.
That's wonderful. Shannon, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, looking into the future of fashion education. I think fashion education has to really change. The future of fashion curriculum should not be one that allows students to continue to perpetuate this old business model and play a part in contributing to the second biggest pollution industry on the planet. Today we are seeing the fashion industry still very much based on the old tailoring techniques, and in some sense, I think we are still teaching students using this format. But I believe all that will change, and it will take time for sure, because education system takes a long time to change and develop. And I think that is one of the challenges that we are facing today when it comes to the future of fashion education. And in some sense, also education has to be leading the industry. Only then true change and true transformation can take place. The future of fashion education is one where I also believe should take a 100-degree turn. We need to reshape the mindset for learning, like I said earlier on, in our students, and also in all of us as educators as well. The old industrial revolution form of education, they have to go, whether we like it or not. One where students sit in front of the classroom, in front of us, we deliver the information we think they need to know in a prescribed manner. They listen and they absorb without questioning. That has to change. Fashion education in the metaverse is no longer about what I think is the master and apprentice format. It's giving students the full autonomy to learn and push their fullest potential, like I said earlier on, with the aid of technology. When we change this mindset for education, that the teacher will no longer be the center stage, but more of a guide alongside with the student. And I think this is my vision of what the future of fashion education is. And also at the same time, I feel that, schools which are best equipped with digital infrastructure and savvy human resources will emerge as the leaders, no matter where they are located. As mentioned earlier on, our students from LaSalle College of the Arts School of Fashion, they love the blended form of education. It is very much well received, especially for research focus, screen-based or even theory-based lessons. However, classes which are more hands-on, that involve techniques and use of equipment, still present themselves with a set of challenges, which include addressing passive and indirect learning experiences. That's something that we have to recognize. And that said, developing online tools or technologies that can address these areas remain a challenge, but they are important. However, optimistically speaking, we can begin to address these issues using contemporary technologies such as virtual reality, augmented reality, image recognition, and even eye tracking technologies. We can go beyond physical classroom by creating a metaverse that provides assistance for running classes and creates an immersive learning experience that runs the gamut of campus activities while using the latest digital technologies. I would like to see that if gaming has vastly transformed the world of fashion, the same potential can also be presented and seized for education. These are research areas we could all dive into and work together closely and collaboratively with researchers from different disciplines and sectors, as we shape the future of fashion education. The future of fashion education is one that I believe is extremely collaborative, and we need to all work together, to shape that future that we all envision, it to be.
Absolutely. Jules, do you want to add?
Olivia, I didn't want so much to add, although it's connected to what Shannon said in terms of collaboration. I wanted to answer Paulina and Mark's question around what difference is that making to the consumer. There's this saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think we around the table, we all know that it takes a team of talented people to do anything great, whether it's a great brand, a great education program, it's always a team effort. And I think that's really where digital fashion tools can radically change the way fashion is designed and consumed. Because if you think about it, at the moment, it's kind of a disjointed process. The designers will come up with their own designs. Somehow they will bring them to the market. It will be picked up by influencers, and then the final consumers will then decide to buy them. But moving forward, you can bring all these people together. You can inform the designs based on AI. What are consumers actually buying? Which colors do they like? What design are they interested in? And as the designers start putting together their design, they can get some real life input from consumers, from stylists, from influencers. And so when the brand is kind of fully formed and the product fully formed before it is sold, rather than something like an afterthought. And we know that a priority for the current generation, the Gen Z, who's becoming the main buyer of luxury fashion, to name just one thing, is community and empathy. And that, to me, is the main opportunity in digital fashion, bringing these people together to create even greater products and greater experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Jules. Thanks so much. We have 4 more minutes. Do you want to add something, Sean? Or should we go with one of the questions?
There are a few questions in the Q&A. I think interesting questions just to look at. I think, but I wanted to add an interesting perspective, and it's a quote from somebody who taught me a long time ago, and that was Bobby Hilson at St. Martin's, and it's basically that we can't teach you how to design. You have to know how to design. We can guide you, and this fits into the conversation we're having today. Now, to bring that back to the curriculum question, because that's kind of what we're also talking about here in developing the curriculum for the age of the metaverse and the future curriculums in fashion. It's really about developing this learning line, isn't it, about what happens from beginning to end in the program that you're studying, and how you are engaged in the connection between creativity, digital technology, digital skills, the physical world, and the digital world, and how you bring that all together and how you design within it and design for it. And that's a key point for me in building or adapting the curriculum that we have. I think also it was mentioned that education moves very slowly, as we know it does. You have to go through validations, you have to develop all the documentation, you have to, everything that you have to do for it. It takes ages to validate a course and revalidate a course, of course, and then to deliver the course. So, you know, what's key here is looking at where is the world going, what is happening, what is Generation Alpha wanting? That's the next set of people coming up. And how are they going to engage with the fashion education that we're laying before them at the moment and the curriculums that we have, which is a really key point. And how do we engage with this generation? How do we ensure that we are in step with this generation? You know, I'm an older person and have a lot of experience behind me, and I come from a particular place and experience in the industry and in being going through art college to develop my idea of fashion at the end of the day. So what is it about the future that Generation Alpha and beyond, Generation Beta, are going to want, and what can they engage with? What do we have to keep from the past, and what do we have to let go? Because it's important to let go of many things, I think, and to embrace new things. That's an important message that I wanted to bring out.
That's for sure. So I think we are at the end of our webinar. Just 1 minute is not enough for answer any more questions. Sorry if it was not possible to answer all your questions. I see that some of the participants are answering to the attendees. That's pretty good. Thank you so much for helping us in this job. And thank you so much, Jules, Maya, Shannon, Sean, Leslie. It was one amazing hour that was so fast. Didn't see even it was a whole hour. And I think this conversation continues. The fashion education curriculum of the future is a lot to discuss. And some of the attendees have very good questions, very good things to talk about, to think about it. And I believe we can continue this conversation in other channels. So please join our newsletter and join us on our website and on social media. And absolutely, we will continue this talk. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating, and see you soon in the next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Thank you.